Welcome! If you're a network professional trying to figure out how to stretch your SD-WAN fabric into AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud without all the usual headaches, you have come to the right place. We're going to do a deep dive into Cisco's Cloud OnRamp for Multicloud and show you how automation can make it all happen.
So here's what we've got on tap. First, we'll cover the basics. What is Cloud OnRamp? Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the multi-cloud architectures. After that, we're going to walk you through the entire deployment workflow in vManage, from configuration all the way to defining your connectivity intent. Let's get to it.
All right, let's jump right in. To really get what Cloud OnRamp for Multicloud is all about, we've got to first understand the problems it was built to solve. And let's be honest, in today's cloud-heavy world, there are plenty of them.
At its heart, this is really the next big evolution of Cisco's cloud strategy. We're moving way beyond just setting up a basic tunnel to the cloud. This is all about deep, API-driven integration with the native networking services of the major cloud providers. The real key here, the secret sauce, is automation. It transforms what has always been the super manual, error-prone process into a streamlined, repeatable, and policy-driven workflow. It's a game changer.
Now, I love this slide because it just makes it all so clear. This is the goal, right? A single, unified, centrally managed SD-WAN fabric that stretches seamlessly from your sites and data centers straight into your workloads, whether they're running in AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud. What does that mean for you? It means consistent policy, security, and performance no matter where your stuff is. So, what's the bottom line? Well, we're talking about automating the entire process of extending your SD-WAN, which can literally turn days of work into just a few hours and slash human error. You get a consistent experience, so your team doesn't have to be experts in the networking quirks of every single cloud provider. It's all managed from one spot, vManage. And maybe most importantly, your security policies and network segments just extend right into the cloud, giving you the same posture everywhere. Okay, let's switch gears and get into the architecture. Each cloud provider does things a little differently, and what makes Cloud OnRamp so powerful is how it intelligently integrates with each one to leverage their native strengths. This isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. First up, AWS. When we talk about AWS integration, it is all about tapping into the AWS Transit Gateway. The idea is to create this super scalable and solid hub-and-spoke network right inside the cloud, with Transit Gateway acting as your regional cloud router. And this picture shows it all perfectly. You can see how vManage automates the whole thing. It spins up a Transit VPC, which is where the Cisco cloud routers live. Those routers then connect to the AWS Transit Gateway. Now, the huge advantage here is that it uses native GRE tunnels through something called Transit Gateway Connect. Why does that matter? Well, it can give you up to 4 times the bandwidth of traditional IPsec and makes your life way easier by using a single BGP session for all your routing updates. Next, let's take a look at Microsoft Azure. The architecture here is centered around a really tight API-driven integration with Azure's own Global Transit Network service, which you probably know as Azure Virtual WAN, or vWAN. The key thing to see here is just how seamless this is. Through those APIs, vManage is the puppet master. It can automatically deploy Cisco SD-WAN Cloud Edge routers as network virtual appliances directly inside the Azure vWAN hub. Your SD-WAN fabric basically becomes a native part of your Azure environment. We're talking a true zero-touch deployment, but for the cloud. All right, last but not least, let's dive into Google Cloud Platform. The GCP partnership is really cool because it uses the Google Network Connectivity Center to open up 2 very different and very powerful ways to use it. Now, this slide is super important. On the left, you've got your standard site-to-cloud model. That's for getting automated, secure access to your apps running in GCP. Makes sense. But look at the right, that's the site-to-site model, and it's unique. This lets you use Google's amazing high-performance private global network as a middle-mile backbone for your traffic between sites. This can be way more reliable, with lower latency, and can even be cheaper than the public internet or those pricey MPLS circuits. So now that we've covered the what and the how from an architecture point of view, let's see how this all comes together in the real world. We're going to move from theory to practice and walk through the actual deployment workflow inside the Cisco vManage controller. Okay, this screen is basically your command center for everything multi-cloud. The whole process, from A to Z, is guided by these 4 logical steps you see at the bottom: setup, discover, manage, and intent management. It's designed to be a clear path that takes you from the initial setup all the way to a fully running, policy-driven network. So, at a high level, that 4-part workflow breaks down into these 6 basic steps.
You start with device templates and getting your cloud credentials plugged in. Then, you move on to discovering what's out there and configuring the networks. And it all leads up to the final step, defining your connectivity intent. And the best part? Every single step is handled right inside vManage.
All right, let's get into the weeds of those first two workflows. This is where we lay all the groundwork. We're going to tell vManage about our cloud environments, and then let it go out and discover what we've got.
The very first practical thing you have to do is right here in Account Management. You need to link your cloud provider accounts to vManage. This is what gives the controller permission through its APIs to spin up resources and configure things for you in AWS, Azure, or GCP. Think of it like the secure handshake that makes all the automation possible.
And as you can see in this table, every cloud provider handles authentication a little differently. For AWS, you can use access keys, or even better and more secure, an IAM role. Azure uses something called a service principal, which is kind of like an app identity in your Azure Active Directory. And GCP uses a similar idea called a service account, which you authenticate with a JSON key file. Getting these right is absolutely step number one.
Once you've got your accounts linked up, you hop over to Global Settings. This is where you set the default rules for your deployments. You can pick the standard software version for your virtual routers, the default instance size they'll use, and the IP subnets for your transit networks. Doing this here ensures everything stays consistent and makes deployment way easier later on.
With all that setup done, vManage can now do its thing, discovery. It reaches out into your cloud accounts and finds all your existing host VPCs or VNets, the networks where your applications actually live. Your job then is to apply tags to these networks. Tags are just simple labels, but they're incredibly powerful. They let you group networks by function, like production, dev, or PCI. And it doesn't matter what their IP addresses are or which cloud they're in.
And that brings us to the final and honestly the most powerful part of the whole workflow. We've done the setup, we've done the discovery, now it's time to tell the system what we actually want it to do. We're moving from just configuration to defining our connectivity intent. The first part of bringing the network to life is creating these cloud gateways. You can just think of them as the logical on-ramps into each of your cloud regions. As you can see, it's super simple. You just give the gateway a name, tie it to an account, pick a region, and confirm the settings. Then vManage takes over and does all the hard work of building the virtual routers and the transit network in the cloud for you.
And this is the magic right here. This is the big payoff, the Intent Management Matrix. On the left, you've got your SD-WAN VPNs, your segments from your on-prem network. Across the top are those cloud network tags we created just a minute ago. To build a network, all you have to do is click the box where a VPN and a tag intersect. That single click tells vManage your intent, and it automatically builds all the routing, policies, and tunnels to make that connection happen. It's that simple. So what this really all boils down to is a massive shift in how we think about networking. We're moving away from the old model of manually configuring every single router and wrestling with complex cloud networking. Instead, we're moving to a model where you just state your business intent. You simply define who needs to talk to what, and you let the system figure out the how. And that frees you and your team up to focus on the things that really matter, like the security and application policies that drive your business.